So good evening and welcome. My name is Carlin Sullivan. I'm the director of the Team Pact Alumni Network, and we are so thrilled that you are here this evening for our next episode of Equip. Equips are monthly micro trainings produced by the network, and through them it is our hope that you will be encouraged in your life in the areas of spiritual growth, discipleship, career, college development, all sorts of topics. So if there's anything that you would like for us to find professionals to speak upon, please let me know. You can Facebook me or message me on Facebook Live, on Facebook, or email me. But tonight, I'm so thrilled. I know you're going to greatly enjoy our guest. She's a dear friend of mine. Her name is Betsy Teubl. She has a long list of credentials in her Team Pact world. We're going to hear a little bit about that. She's also the founder of what the network was previously named, called the Team Pact Alumni Association. So that's going to be super exciting to hear about. She's a mental health professional. She's currently pursuing her PhD in clinical psychology. So soon, well, in a couple of years, maybe she'll be Dr. Teubl. She and her husband, Mark, have two precious children. They live in the Washington, D.C. area, and something really cool that they do, we were just spending some time talking about it, and she's going to tell you more about it, is they have a community house where they bring in young professionals for a semester, 9 months, or for the summer, to allow them to experience what it's like to live with a Christian family and instant community. So she even actually has some Team Pact alumni coming in this summer, which is super exciting. So Betsy, welcome. We are so thrilled that you're here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your Team Pact world. Where did you start as a small little one-day student, and take us through your experience in ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I also want to say is I'm so proud that I am very loosely related to you as a soul.
Yes, we should address that.
Thing. Yeah. My sister-in-law is your niece.
That's right. We are. So I'll call you my niece. There we go.
Yeah.
I'll take you.
Well, I was actually a one-day student in Washington State, and I have a little picture just to help give you an idea of what it was like in the 2000s.
Are you reading your bill?
And dress code was definitely happening there.
To accept.
Yeah. But yeah, did that back in 2003. And then I was a really shy 15-year-old for the 4-day class, if you can believe it. If you can believe it, Carlin.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really was impacted by the program, and the Lord really used the people and the program to just unlock my potential as a young person. And I just remember it just lit my fire. Mm-hmm. And the Washington State class was actually going to close out because we didn't have enough interest. And so I leaned in, I went out of my comfort zone, and I started promoting the class, and we were able to revitalize it. And went on to travel staff and help coordinate, and ended up state coing before going off to college. So had a good time and continued just on breaks to volunteer and turned on the office for some college credit. And a couple of years ago, helped found the network. So
that's awesome. So clearly you're someone who likes to start things, and you're a self-motivating person, not want to sit back and just kind of take things as it is, which is so inspiring about you. What was it about? What was happening or gave you the idea for the Team Pact Alumni Association? Tell me how that even started. How did it become an idea for you?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I feel like this idea has been carried in just hundreds of alumni since the very beginning. But I have a very distinct memory. I was at work, and I was pulling my hair out. I was trying to fill a position at work, and I was interviewing all these people. And believe it or not, they were either ghosting me or they were showing up and hadn't even read what they had applied for. And I was just like, if only there was an alumni association for Team Pact that I could just post this, and I just know I would want to hire a Team Pacter. I would just want to hire a Team Pacter. Just leadership skills, high quality. So that was kind of a moment for me that just continued to carry on. And even just thinking back to just my time with the Washington State program, we started an alumni association, and I saw just the transformation of connection that could happen, that there were just opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And people just really it just also unlocked their potential of who they were as a young person, being able to do that. And it created a sense of just community and family for people. And so I was like, wow, I just caught a vision for the nation. Like, wow, what if our whole Team Pact Nation had this? That'd be amazing.
Mhm.
And then
Well, I
just,
remember you came to National Convention and it was just an idea you had. And so they brought you there. You spent like 2 or 3 days and it was just starting the conversation. Next thing you know, boom. Did you gather people in across other alumni to help you with that?
yeah, absolutely. I spoke with the board and they encouraged me to really put together just a committee or a crew or just like a pitch group that covered the different ages, different genders, different experiences. So yeah, I had a great crew. Claire Costello, now Sylvester, I guess. A lot of last names have changed.
Yeah.
Funkhauser, Rachel Seldenrust, Trisha Willoughby, August Huckabee. We had a good crew. So yeah,
Right.
just interviewed and surveyed just hundreds of alumni and stakeholders, and it just came back consistently over and over, just a way to connect and network and give back to and pour into the next generation. So it was.
Well, thank you for starting that. That's huge. I mean, and then we transitioned it into the network and you were super helpful and vital in that. You still serve as an advisor. We're always trying to grab ideas from you. And it's exciting to see now just the connections that are being made and just like the desire of the association and the network, we just had a name change, is to just to have the alumni remain connected because there's so many ways that we can help the next generation coming up. And things like even in your community home, you use the network to try to get interest and applications for people to move into your cohort. So it's really neat to see that happening. You mentioned Trisha Willoughby. She's actually through the network. We got reconnected. She's moving to Tampa. She lived in my house during spring break. I wasn't even here.
I love that.
So we were able to, these are the restaurants, here's a realtor. So I just love just all these little connections that are being made. People are getting jobs, they're getting internships. So it's just, so thank you for having just the desire and the dream to start that. And it's just really neat to see how the Lord is just growing it. We have close to 1,100 members part of it now. So it's just super exciting. So if you're listening, invite your Team Pact friends to join, particularly the earlier years, back to the 1994 people. We'd love to, because those are the ones that have the experiences that need now the interns. So the attorneys and the doctors and the lawyers. We're not all a bunch of 20-year-olds anymore. So, you know, there are some 40-year-olds out there having children coming to the one day and wearing their very long skirt and their braids.
So and it's the heart of God, right? Is like the body of Christ. Like he designed us to be in community, and just there's so much more that we can do when we're together, and just when we're unified, how much more we can just advance the kingdom and others. I was just even thinking back when the idea was getting just back when I was like in the 40 class, I was thinking of how it could mobilize like missions trips and you know, job opportunities, and it's just so fun to see that happening today. So
I think Team Pact does a really great job in building community. And it sounds like for you and for my husband and I, our 4 children all went through the program through staff classes and staffing and interning and all that. Team Pact kind of became their, you know, as a homeschool student, it kind of became very quickly their world and their main source of community. What's interesting is we kind of tease 4-day parents like, pretty soon your students will be, oh, my best friend in Washington or my best friend in Texas, because, you know, no longer is your best friend down the street. So, so be prepared for plane tickets. But I think when you're all invested in things, like our children were, and like your family was, it's hard to leave those things. You know, it's really hard. There does come a time you do turn 19 and you do need to go the next phase of life. And it being May and all these graduations are popping up, whether it be high school and college, people starting new jobs, people entering in possibly a season of marriage, or just moving out of the home and starting a trade. There's just lots of new beginnings coming, and with new beginnings come end of relationships and situations, and it's all right and it's all good, but it's not always easy. I remember when I was graduating from college, I attended the University of Florida, and that was kind of all me. I mean, my whole identity was wrapped up in my student organizations and this leadership position and that honor society and all that. And I did not transition well. In fact, I kind of crashed and burned. I gave no forethought. I just went to this town where my boyfriend lived without a job and moved in with a friend. And luckily I married the man, so that worked out okay. But trying to find a job and all that was very, very difficult. There was no forethought. And so that is what I think I'd really like for us to touch on, and where you could bring so much light and expertise to that area. So what are some tools, like resources or books or things, just kind of start off with there, that could help us in our transition as people are starting to say goodbye, whether that be from a relationship, a job, a town, or a school?
Yeah. Man, I just want to say I hear you. That's such a human experience. It seems so normal, right? And yet
Yep.
we often find ourselves living the inevitabilities of life and realizing like, man, I kind of wish I had more tools in my pocket, in my back pocket for this. So yeah, when I think about transitions and goodbyes, a couple of the resources that have come to mind, that especially were in my master's program, Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. He was the author of Boundaries. You might know him more. He's more known for Boundaries. Grief and Loss, Understanding the Journey by Stephen Freeman, and then The Next Right Thing by Ellie Freeman. And I can post all these links in the comments afterwards. Necessary Endings is really helpful for when you're thinking through whether I should transition out of a season, a job, a relationship, something like that. Or like a place of where you're living, just a change. The Grief and Loss is really about grief, which is not all about death. I know we were talking about that. Grief is more than the death in the sense of losing a loved one. It's also just really the loss of a season or a person, or and we can go more into that. So I have an excerpt I want to read. It says, endings are not only a part of life, they are a requirement for living and thriving professionally and personally. Without the ability to do endings well, we flounder, stay stuck, and fail to reach our goals and dreams. Or worse, we remain in a painful and sometimes destructive situations. Endings are crucial, but we rarely like them.
True.
Yeah, it's hard stuff, right?
It is. I love the fact that you said that grief is not only with the death of a physical death. I have a friend that was in a relationship and it ended, and is being told often, get over it. It's been 2 years. It's time to move on. And we just need to give people space that really how they grieve is between themselves and the Lord, first of all. And everything looks different. And so we often beat ourselves up. Whereas ending a relationship for one might be easier, even though it was a good ending. You still grieve the loss of a best friend and someone you had invested so much time in. So I love the fact that grief is not always, does it require a physical death for it to be grief? Right.
Because it's really about, like what you were saying, it's about a change, and there's a loss of what could have been that wasn't.
Yes.
Or like you were saying, even if I'm going off to college or I'm moving out to do fill in the blank, I'm excited about it. There's still a loss of what used to be.
Right.
But yeah, I think if there was one thing that I would hope for you all to just get out of this conversation, those that are listening, I think a healthy goodbye really starts with what you can control. You really can't often control other people, although we try. And we can't really necessarily control our circumstances. Some choices we can, most we can't. But you can start with what you can control, and that is yourself. And one self-awareness game changer tool that has been really helpful for me in saying healthy goodbyes and for other clients has been grief work. And this idea of walking through the 4 tasks of grief. Like we were saying, because the very nature of a goodbye is that it's a change. It's the loss of something to grieve, big or small. And they're tasks because they're not stages. So they're not linear. You can't just be like A plus B equals, I got over it. It's 1, 2, 4, 1, 2. Exactly. And it's just a journey. And the way that we are created is it's something that we move forward in and we build resiliency over. But it's just the way we've been designed and in the ways that our minds work. 20 years from now, we still feel and maybe still grieve something, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you did something wrong necessarily. It means that you're human, and it means that this is not our home. It means that something isn't right, So there's a bit of that timetable that I think we've all experienced. I think even as I'm talking, there's no one who cannot relate to this.
Absolutely.
We cannot.
Absolutely. So what are those 4 tasks? Walk us through some of those.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just say the last thing is that grief work, it gets really personal for me because
Okay.
I've experienced the full spectrum, both from my educational and clinical background, but then also just life, I'm only like 31, but I've lived a lot of life when it comes to grief. I know what it's like to have the loss of a parent. I know it's like have the death of a friend and grandparents, to go through a breakup, to be laid off at a job, rejection letters, moving to a different city, moving away from my childhood home, things like that. So if there's anything that if I could go back and talk to my, just like my high school senior self, it
Yeah.
would be to normalize these goodbyes and to normalize it as just a natural part of life, and to have the kindness and self-compassion to create and hold space to do this grief work. So yeah,
To allow yourself to feel the feelings. I mean, feelings are not wrong. We don't dwell on them. We don't waddle in them, but we experience them and work through them. To deny them, I think, is not moving forward at all.
yeah. And I think there's a lot of different things that can hold us back from leaning into those, into that pain.
Oh,
And
yeah.
something it could just be you're holding on to the truth so much of like, well, this, God has good things for me, or this is the right next thing, so I shouldn't be sad.
Right.
And so I shut down that sadness because I'm supposed to be happy, or I'm supposed to be grateful, or I have it better off than someone else, so I need to just be, content. And those are all really good things, but God also grieves.
Yeah.
God created that for a reason. It's like it's an invitation for you to lean in that, so you can be healthy and whole moving forward. So
Right.
So we can track along here. I brought a little board. One thing that I invite you as you're listening, as I go through these 4 tasks of grief, just make a mental note of which you think is the hardest for you. Just think of a goodbye that you've done either recently or in the past, and just make a mental note of which one you have more questions about or you find the most difficult. All right, so the first one is to accept the loss. All right, can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can.
So oftentimes it's easier, like you were saying, in the short term to choose denial to avoid pain. Number 2 is to face the pain. And oftentimes it's easier to choose to stuff it and to disassociate and to distract in order to avoid that pain. But time knows no limits when it comes to grief and the pain associated with mourning a loss. And sooner or later, it honestly does catch up to you. And sometimes that comes into a form of depression, or other times it's just, you just realize, I need to just work through this. It's either a form of depression, you feel stuck. Like, and then 3, adjust to the new reality. And oftentimes it can be really disorienting, but familiar to try and keep living what things were instead of adjust to the way things are now. And then 4, move relationship to memory. It's kind of at an angle, but you can kind of tackle on and remember. Yeah, so those are the 4 tasks of grief. You can Google them. There's a lot of different researchers and experts that have basically generally used these 4 for, quite a while now at this point, but this is the gist.
That's awesome. And I think is it your brother, Jordan?
Hello, Jordan. Is he?
Yeah, no, he's being very helpful in the comments. He's listing them for us. So he's being very helpful. So you keep at it, Jordan. You're being great.
Okay, we're siblings that all did Team Pack together.
Exactly. So, so tell me a little bit about what does it look like in real life? You have a really fun example of a goodbye that you did not do so well, which I think is hysterical. This is so Betsy Reich.
Yes. So welcome to freshman year of college, Betsy Reich at the time. Yeah, actually. So Patrick Henry College, shout out. I had just aged out of Teen Pact.
The ripe age of 18 and 19.
And we all feel it. And I, I'd been staffing and state coordinating. And so honestly, Teen Pact was my world. And I remember in all our conversations with leadership and peers and friends, we tried to not make Teen Pact our world because like the real world exists. And it was like a really fulfilling ministry. And for me in high school, it became the most fulfilling. It just was a really, really meaningful thing. So to move forward was really hard. And I just spent like 4 years really heavily involved in the program. But I just remember thinking to myself, okay, it's college. I'm going to college now. Here we are. And I arrive and I think that I'm at college. And then I find that I still was remembering, I was still living week to week as if they were Teen Pact weeks. And it surprised me. Like on Mondays, as I'm, going to my Monday class, I'm smiling, thinking about how the box game is happening and the biscuits are having candy. And then on Thursdays, it's not Thursdays in my cafeteria, it's graduation day. And I'm just like, this is in my head. Like, I'm trying to be here. Like, why am I thinking about graduation day? And even within the first 2 weeks of being on campus, it was a small school, but there's still like 400 people. That's still a lot of people. I memorized everyone's name. Why? Because I was in Teen Pact staffer mode, and that's what you do, is you get to know everybody's name, and you're really personable and intentional. And I wasn't cliquish because that's one of the things. You're not supposed to be cliquey. And I just found myself like, even in the first like 24 hours of meeting my roommates, I was creating all these an intentional time to basically do rendezvous with them. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, we have more than just 4 days together. We can like see revival and full transformation in our lives. So yeah, believe it or not, I thought I had left Teen Pact behind, but it was very much something that I was reliving. And I felt really stuck because I hadn't created that space to actually say goodbye to that season. And so I found myself reliving it. And so come the end of the semester, I had made a lot of friends, but I realized I didn't have a core group that I was actually like, could do life with, because I was, pretending like it was the only week that existed, I was trying to Teen Pact college.
That's awesome. Well, through the community house that you and Mark have, and how y'all chosen to raise your children in this family, this incredible environment and community that y'all have created, lots of people coming in and out of your home. Some were there for 9 months, some were there for 3 months. And I would assume if you live with someone 24/7, in addition to your family, you become very close to them, trying to build community with them, getting to know them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Lots of goodbyes over the years. So help us understand, like in that situation, or even as people are graduating from college, how do you say goodbye in a healthy way without cutting someone out of your life, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good question. One thing that I have done to facilitate grief work in the way that we do community living here is we set aside goodbye dinner. And there's something really impactful and that can bring closure when you actually like have something on the calendar, have an event, a way to celebrate and to say goodbye. And so what we actually, we're doing this tomorrow, come to think of it, because we have people moving out this weekend, and then we have some Patrick Henry College students coming in. So shout out to Linnea, if you're listening. She's a previous Teen Pact staffer and she's moving in with us. And so what we do is, the reason why we do this goodbye dinner is to, if we do the 4 tasks of the grief, 1, acknowledge and verbalize the shift and accept the loss of no longer living together. I got really close to a cohort last summer when my husband was deployed. So this was like very tangible. We all became like family. And number 2, we created and we held space to just face the pain and share what we'll miss about not being together. Number 3, adjust to the new reality by talking about where we're moving to and like what people will be doing in this new season. And then 4, move memory to relationship of this season and just kind of close out that chapter by just sharing stories and reminiscing and sharing photos and like a memory book, things like that, so that it can bring like a closure and like remembrance. So yeah, that's one way that we've facilitated a way to say goodbye in a healthy way. Because depending on like how you grew up or where you kind of got the tips and tricks of saying goodbye, some people, it's just so uncomfortable that you just kind of leave or disappear, or you have to like be upset and like make it a bad situation so that you're happy to leave. And you didn't mean to do that. It's just, you don't know where it's all coming from. So that's just a way for us to do that and make that mental shift. And then I had to do it.
I'll say, will you post a picture after tomorrow night's dinner under the comments of this? I think it'd be really fun to see your group.
Sure. Yeah.
If they're comfortable with that. I don't know if they're comfortable with that. So that would be great. So, why do you think transitions are sometimes more difficult for others, and others do it well? Is it, you think it's from their upbringing, their ability to face the sadness? What do you think? What do you think it is?
Yeah. Well, I think you're kind of listing off, it's a bunch of different factors.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, it's really helpful when you can just hold space for yourself and for other people to do things differently. Because you don't, like, everyone has different stories, everyone has different journeys. And, but what I tend to encourage is the difference tends to be a level of self-awareness, but then also something's more of a big deal to someone else than it is to another person. And that's actually okay. But that doesn't diminish, or it doesn't mean you should diminish your own grief or not give yourself permission to grieve something because it wasn't a big deal for your sibling or your friend or a situation or coworker. Or even if someone's just going through a harder situation than you, it's still worthwhile to hold space for what you're going through, because it does matter. Like, your body doesn't lie. And so listen, and the Lord speaks to you, in the word of God.
What do you mean by that? Your body doesn't lie? You mean like in a physical pain?
In physically, in the sense of like, your chest can tighten.
Okay.
You can be really fatigued.
Okay.
You can be really tired. There's, in the book Grief and Loss, Understanding the Journey, it kind of breaks down what the physical, your physical body can naturally normally go through when you're going through a loss. And then it feels a little less scary and it's a little more normalized.
My friend I was mentioning before, who ended that that relationship, and it was 2 years ago, physically feels the pain in her chest and really thought she was having heart problems, and went to a cardiologist. And they're like, your heart's fine. She goes, oh my gosh, I think I'm just really sad, and just internalizing it. Yeah, because not allowing herself space. So I may just have her call you. That might just be fairly helpful.
I was more than happy. You're more than happy to hit me up. I'd love to just hold space for you and hear what your transition was like with Teen Pact, if that's recent or been many years ago. It's still relevant to your story and to your body.
Yeah. So they can always just message you or find you in the network. We are about out of time, and I feel like we could talk for like 6 more hours, but I would love to hear any closing thoughts that you can give us on how to handle transitions well and do it and face our grief in the way that we're called to face it.
Yeah. I think my closing thoughts would be, I would just really encourage you to consider reading one of those 3 books, and I'll post it below, because the truth is that we're going to continue to say goodbye. And so the more we can get resilient about it, I think the less stuck we're going to feel. And even though I know about grief work, doesn't mean I always do it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I need to slow down my life. Like, this is important. And like, even like when that cohort left, like, there were moments that I had to just slow down and just be sad when I was walking around the house, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that that I did anything wrong. It just means that I'm human, so just have self-compassion for yourself and hold space for yourself and others. Because it just, goodbyes remind us that this is not our home. Right. And so start with what you can control, which is yourself. And the more, it's worth it, because you'll just feel more stuck. And God is a God of freedom, and He wants to live in life for you. And so it's just normal. It's just life. I can be a little bit of a stuffer, which I'm learning even tonight. And I've already purchased one of the books you've recommended. I remember when our oldest left for college, and literally, like, it's sort of embarrassing, but had her pillow, and I was just
sobbing my eyes out. It was the first one to go. And so my friend called and said, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm not doing well, whatever. She goes, you need to allow yourself some time. And I was like, okay. And she goes, how long's it been? I'm like, 2 hours. She goes, you need to move along. You need to put the pillow down and go serve, she was teasing me, but yeah, but it was a physical, and I'm not a crier, and I was a mess. But I think it's like, no, and now everyone that's left, I give myself that afternoon just to be sad and cry, and I clear my calendar because I know this is going to hit me hard. And that's okay. I just didn't do it really the first time.
Yeah, okay. It's usually how life goes. Oh, okay, your next time.
Yes, I will not be crying into the pillow. Yeah. Anyway, Betsy, thank you so much. You and your few years of 31, you have more wisdom than most more seasoned adults have. And so I'm so grateful. I can't wait to get to watch on the Insider, since we're basically family, on how God's going to use your gift and your talents for his good and his glory. So I'm excited for that. So thank you for being here. You're such a gift. So talented.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. And please feel free to reach out to me. I'll post my information in the comments, but
okay.
Just glad to be a part of the network.
That sounds great.
Next generation.
There we go. All right. Take care. Bye.